Okay. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the presentation for the update project, which got postponed from earlier this spring. It's going to happen, the notices are going to go out next year now in March of 2021. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us tonight. My name is Joe Eminger, and my firm is the contractor on this project. We worked on it, my firm worked on it from 2010 to 2015. Then another firm did it for a number of years, and then they brought our firm back in to do this portion of the project that was originally supposed to hit, like I said, in March of 2020, and now it's going to hit March of 21. So now what we're doing, what my firm is doing this year is we're updating. We're updating the assessments that we had on your property this year. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So your pointer's working, but there's not like the thing is. All right, so while they're fixing that, so we don't waste any time. My presentation should last 50 minutes, depending on things, maybe 60 minutes tops. Okay, and then we'll get into the some question and answer period, and we'll stay as long as we have to answer any questions. Okay, so thank you. All right, so the goal of this project, the goal of any reassessment project, is this: it's to establish uniform and fair assessments for everyone. We want fair and equitable assessments. That's the number one goal. Okay. Everybody, I would assume here, believes they pay too much in taxes, including yours truly. Okay, but this is not a taxation project. This is a valuation project. So if you have a problem with your assessment, at any time, not only this year, next year, the year after, if you have a problem with your assessment, you should be reaching out to the assessor to discuss your assessment. Okay, if you have a problem with your taxes and you think you're paying too much in tax, that's a question for your school board, your town board, and your county legislature. The assessor's office has nothing to do with your taxes. Okay, so what the tax reassessment project does, it just provides an equitable distribution of the property tax. The reassessment does not raise the tax levy. Okay, the tax levy, think of the tax levy as a piece of pie. Okay, the 2% tax cap that hopefully you're all familiar with now, it's the tax levy can only go up the lesser of 2% or what the consumer price index goes up. Okay, so it can't go up more than 2%. However, there is an exception to that, is that they do give municipalities and school districts and taxing jurisdictions a 1-year bonus. If they stay under 1 year, they can use a portion of that they stayed under for the following year. So it could go up 2% plus, maybe, usually probably maybe only another percent. The days of tax levy is going up 5-6%. You're not going to see that anymore because of the tax cap. So the pie that we have here, the tax levy, okay, is basically going to stay the same every year, going up maybe 2% again. And all it is that when you do a reassessment project, you're just slicing the pie up differently. So that's all the reassessment project does. Okay, 2 terms that I want you to be familiar with, if you're not already. They're very important. They're very different terms. Okay, budget versus the levy, the tax levy. One, in my opinion, as a taxpayer, is more important to you than the other. Okay, so the taxing jurisdictions, as I said, school districts, towns, county legislatures, they're responsible for developing the budget. That is going on right now in the town of Cheektowaga and every other town in New York State for that matter. They're developing their budgets. Those budgets will be voted on in November, early November. Those budgets will be voted. Okay, what is the budget? The revenue from all sources other than the property tax is determined. Okay, those revenues are subtracted from the budget to arrive at the next levy. So you have your big number. The budget is your big number. Included in that number is your fees that are going to be generated by the town, your state aid, your grants that that you are probably going to receive. And then they come up with a number that has to be raised through taxation. Okay, that's the number to balance the budget. All towns have balanced budgets, believe it or not. Okay, not like the state, not like the federal government. Okay, towns, without a rare exception, have balanced budgets. They can't print their own money. Okay, so they have to have balanced budgets. And how they get that balanced budget is they get these figures and then they come down to the number that has to be raised through taxation. That number that has to be raised through taxation, that's the tax levy. And that's the number you should be concentrating on from tonight forward, the tax levy. Don't worry about the budget, so to speak. Worry about the tax levy. The tax levy, as I said, is a number that gets impacted by the tax cap. Okay? If the tax levy is going up, there's a high likelihood that your taxes are going to be going up. Okay, I'll say it again. If your tax levy is going up, there's a high likelihood that your taxes are going up. Okay. Two additional factors: the tax rate, and assessments. They go into those determinations. The tax rate you get by dividing the tax levy by the total assessed value of the property. Don't pay too much attention to the tax rate. You got to pay attention to it. I understand that, but tax rate, people can play games with tax rates because I can guarantee you one thing with this project. Okay, the tax rate in the town of Cheektowaga will be going down. I'll get into that in a second. The tax rate's going to be coming down. Does that mean your taxes are going down? No, it does not mean your taxes are going down. Okay. Assessments again. So here's the example. Oh, here's the example. I knew I was going to have that happen tonight. You take their levy, you can't see it, it's $10 million divided by $500 million, the total taxable, it doesn't say taxable assessed value, $500 million. You get the tax rate of $20 per thousand. Okay, per thousand. That's how you get and that's on your paper. Okay, so remember, although assessments play an integral part, the tax levy is the controlling factor. As I said, that's, pay attention to your assessment, obviously, because you don't want to pay more than your fair share. Everybody has to pay taxes. That's the only way. That and death, right? The old joke. The only two things guaranteed in life: taxes and death. Okay, you're going to pay taxes. Your goal as a taxpayer, my goal as a taxpayer, is to make sure you're only paying your fair share of taxes. Everybody has to pay taxes, but you just want to make sure you're paying your fair share. And how do you make sure you're paying your fair share? By making sure that your assessment is correct for this part of the project, for the valuation project. Okay, most of you, I would assume, over the last 3 years, maybe longer, have not seen your assessment change. Okay, but most of you, I would also assume, have seen your taxes go up in the last 2-3 years. Okay, the cost of government, like everything, like running your household, the cost of government has gone up over the last year number. It goes up every year. Okay, so it's natural that would also happen in running a government. Okay, but pay attention to your tax levy, and you'll be much better off going forward. So New York State Real Property Tax Code 305, Section 305, says that the assessor has to assess properties at a uniform percentage of value. Doesn't tell you what percentage of value. It has to be assessed at a uniform percentage of value. It could be 100%. Right now, the town of Cheektowaga is at 83%. The longer you go without a reassessment, the lower the equalization rate is going to keep dropping. When your equalization drops, that has an inverse relationship to value. It means your values are going up. The town of Elma hasn't had a reassessment project in roughly 60 years, 60, back in the 60s. Their equalization rate is 3 point something. Okay, so the problem as you go along and you go further and further away from having a reassessment project is that you have inequities in the tax rate. You have people who aren't paying their fair share. You have people who are underassessed. And if people are underassessed, that means the rest of the town, those who are assessed correctly and who are overassessed, are subsidizing those roles, those taxes. So market value, you probably heard this before, okay? It's the most probable sell price in a competitive and open market between a willing buyer and a willing seller, okay? The tax bills must show you what the percentage of the equalization rate is. If you look at your tax bill, if you got your school tax bill, it'll show you your assessment and your equalization rate, 83%, and it'll show you what the full market value is. That just occurred probably in the last 8 to 10 years, that adding that equalization rate, putting the full market value on. That was a big help to the consumer, to the taxpayer, because in the past, for example, when you were at 62%, 10 years ago, it would show you $62,000. And a lot of people thought that that's what the full market value of their property was, $62,000. That was wrong. The full market value of your property was $100,000, 62%. So that problem has been alleviated by the state. It's a state law that was enacted. So you don't have that problem anymore. Okay, when you're assessed at 100% the equalization rate, you get the full STAR exemption, you get your full veterans exemption, all the exemptions are at full rates. And most importantly, your assessed value that you're going to see next March, your preliminary assessment that you're going to get is going to be what the town believes that you could sell your property for. That's all an assessment is. An assessment is an opinion of the assessor staff, of my staff, as to what we believe your house could sell for in the open market. Okay, assessment equity. Okay, equity with respect to assessments in real property. Properties are assessed at a uniform percentage of value, 100%. Properties with similar values pay similar taxes. That makes sense. That's only fair, right? If you're valued the same, you should be paying the same in tax. Okay, you want to make sure you're only paying your fair share. Equity, you're going to hear this over and over. Equity is a goal. It's paying fair equity to as many people as we can. But I can guarantee you one thing on this project. Our firm is doing all the residential properties. Another firm is doing the commercial properties. Okay, I can guarantee you one that we're doing 28,000 residential properties. I can guarantee you one thing. We're not going to get everybody's assessment right. Okay, it's impossible to get everybody's assessment right. And that's why we hold informal hearings come next March and April. We're going to be holding those. And we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, but we're going to talk about that more in depth come next February when we have another series of public meetings. Okay, so equity is the goal. New York State law, as I said earlier, says you have to be at a uniform percentage of value. Okay, when assessment equity exists, it ensures the tax burden, the pie is distributed fairly to all of the taxpayers. Equity versus inequity. Okay, if one property, as I alluded to a couple minutes ago, if one property or neighborhood is significantly underassessed, not only are they paying too little in tax, okay, but other property owners are subsidizing that neighborhood or that taxpayer's property. That's what the town board wants to eliminate. And here is an example. This is not an example from the town of Cheektowaga. These homes are not in the town of Cheektowaga, but it shows what I'm talking about. You have two homes in 2015, Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones. You can both sell the property for $100,000. That's their full market value, $100,000. And they both happen to be assessed at $100,000. So those are fair and equitable. All right? Go forward a few years, and here's what you got. You got Mrs. Smith, now property is worth $300,000. Okay, she did some work, maybe not that residents do this, but maybe she did some work on the interior home and didn't get some building permits. Okay, so her home now has a market value of $300,000. She had an appraisal done for refinancing. Okay, and it shows $300,000 value. Her assessed value, though, because her town hasn't done a reassessment project, it's still $100,000. Okay, now Mrs. Jones, her property still went up 50%, so her property value is now $150,000. That's pretty good. Okay, the assessed value remained $100,000. But here's what I just said earlier. What happened here? Mrs. Jones is subsidizing Mrs. Smith's property. Everybody see that? Why that happened? And that's the goal of the project, is to avoid these examples happening. Now, this is an extreme example, but this shows what happened. And this is going on in every community in New York State. It's not across the country. You aren't doing updates. Okay? So 3 things can happen. You're going to get your, when you get your notice, disclosure notice next March, early March. 3 things can happen. Your assessment could increase and your tax bill could decrease. Okay? Your assessment could increase, but your tax bill could decrease. That's going to happen in the town of Cheektowaga, guaranteed. Okay, how is it going to happen? Your assessment was $100,000. Your total taxable value of the town was $50 million. Now, when I say total taxable value, I'm not talking about, it says total value. I'm not talking about the total value within the town. Total taxable value. The total taxable value does not include the not-for-profits, the hospitals, the schools, the churches. Those are not included in the total taxable value. They don't pay tax. Okay, we're not going to get into that discussion whether they should or not. That's another discussion. Above my opinion. Okay, so the total taxable value of the town is $50 million. And again, these are not Town of Cheektowaga specific. This is for the example. The tax levy is $1.5 million. The tax rate is $30 per thousand. How do you get that tax rate? You take $1.5 million, the tax levy, into the total taxable value of $50 million, and you get 0.3, you get 0.03. You got to multiply that by 1,000 because it's tax rate per thousand, and that gets you the $30 per thousand. You take the $30 per thousand times 100. Again, because it's per thousand, so it's 100 times 30 gets you $3,000. That was your property tax bill last year. Okay, so this year, fast forward, your assessment went up 5%. So now you're at 105,000. The total taxable value of the town went up 8%. So the total taxable value of the town is now $54 million. The tax levy, the town fathers and mothers, they did their job. They kept the tax levy flat. So it's still $1.5 million. So to get the tax rate, you take $1.5 million, but that goes into the $54 million now. So it drops the tax rate. Drops the tax rate to $27.78. You multiply that by the 105 now, and it gets you approximately $2,917. Your tax bill went down a whopping $83. Okay, so your assessment went up, but your taxes went down. It's going to happen in the town of Cheektowaga, guaranteed. Okay, the next example is your assessment could increase, but your tax bill could stay the same. You're going to see this in the town of Cheektowaga. Okay, the same numbers are used on the left, the same figures. Now on the right, for this year, your assessment went up 5%. The total taxable value of the town went up 8% to $54 million. But what changed is the tax levy. Remember what I said? Pay attention to the tax levy. That's what you got to pay attention to. Okay, your tax levy increased, it went up 2.86%. How did it go up 2.86%? You had the 2% tax cap, and then they had a 0.86% carryover from the previous year that they could use. So now your tax levy is now $1,542. You take the tax rate, that $1,542 to the $54 million, and you get a tax rate now of $28.57 times the 105, and you get approximately $3,000. Okay, so your assessment went up, and your taxes stay the same. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in the Town of Cheektowaga. This example will not happen in the town, but I show it for demonstration purposes because this is like tax Armageddon. It's the end. It's the end of the world. That's it. Okay. And it does happen. It does happen sometimes. The municipalities aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Okay? Your assessment could decrease. The largest asset that you have, right? For most of us. It's for me anyways. Your home value decreases, but your tax bill increases. The worst of both worlds. Okay? Your value of your home's going down and your taxes are going up. Same example on the left and on the right, your assessment went down now. Instead of going up 5%, it's going down 5%. The total taxable value of the town went down 5%. And this is why it's not going to happen in the town of Cheektowaga. The taxable value of the town is going to go up significantly in the town. Okay, so but this is this example, the total taxable value went down. The tax levy is at 2.86% again, $1,542,000. The tax rate is now $32.48. Your tax bill is now $3,085, an increase of $85. So your assessment went down and your tax bill went up. Won't happen in the town of Cheektowaga. Okay, so remember, property values are based on taxes. Ad valorem, it's a Latin term. That's what real estate property tax law is based on. The assessor has to base property values ad valorem, ad value. Okay, we have the value, what I said, willing buyer, willing seller, and you only want to pay your fair share of the pie. No more, okay, no less. Well, maybe you do want to pay less. Okay, you could do that. Okay, nothing your assessor will do will change the total dollar value to be raised. Okay, the assessor has nothing to do with the tax levy. Absolutely zero. Zero to do with the tax levy. They only determine the proportionate amount that you're going to pay. Okay, how the pie is going to be sliced. Okay, so why are reassessments necessary? Frequent reassessments necessary. Real estate market is constantly changing. We've seen it here in the last 5 to 7 years. The market has been going up and continues to go up. Even during COVID, the real estate market is still very, very strong. You still have multiple offers when you put a house on the market. An example that I heard recently, there were 30 offers coming in on a house. 30 offers coming in on a house. One house. Okay. Market values kind of changing. Not all properties will change at the same rate. Okay. Think about it. You have the properties over on the west side of town, abutting city of Buffalo, and you have the properties on the east side of town, abutting Lancaster. Okay. They are appreciated or depreciated at different rates. They're not going up or down at the same rate. The equalization rate that is developed by the state of New York, the equalization rate is not something that the Town of Cheektowaga Assessor's Office creates. That's created for each municipality in New York State by the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services. Okay, so when you have these, when you have an equalization rate, right now 83%, that 83% is being applied over on Alexander Street on the west part of town, and that same equalization rate is being used to assess properties over on French Road. Okay, the same equalization rate. There's the appreciation in those neighborhoods though is going up at different rates. But the town can't do anything about that to correct that unless they do an a reassessment project. As the value changes, so does your share of the tax levy, share of your pie. You only want to pay your fair share of the pie. Okay, how is market value determined? Okay, the assessor, myself, my firm, we do not create market value. Who creates the market value? You create it, the public does, the buyers and the sellers. You don't make up the sales. I can't understand you.
It's your very I would somehow do based on the set that the property.
No, total assessments have nothing to do. Assessments, that's a fallacy. And I don't know who told you that. I don't. A realtor wouldn't have told you that. An appraiser would never tell you. Okay, but I'm glad you brought that up. The question was, and I'm going to paraphrase it here: assessments can affect the market value of your home. In general terms, that's wrong. Unless your property is way overassessed and you're paying too much in tax, or you're way underassessed and you're not paying nearly enough as you should. If that's not the case, assessments have no impact whatsoever on what you can sell your house for. Zero impact. Okay, so people are under the impression that, and I get these calls, and I'll get calls, I'm sure I'll get calls come February, March, April next year. They'll want us to raise their assessment. Happens in every community that we reassess. People want their home's assessment raised for exactly that reason. They're going to put their house on the market soon, and they want a higher value. Okay, now, if you believe that, we'll be happy to raise your assessment. Okay, but it doesn't impact anything. It doesn't impact anything. Okay. The assessor what the assessor does is they monitor and analyze the real estate transactions. Okay, and they use several comparables that match your property. That's what we're using. We're going to compare your home in your neighborhood, the 20 plus neighborhoods that the Town of Cheektowaga has. We're going to compare homes in your neighborhood for 99% of the properties. We're going to do that. There are some property types that we may not be able to find comparable sales in your neighborhood, and we may have to go to a neighboring neighborhood. We're still not going to go from the east side to the west side. It'll be the neighborhood next to you in all probability. Okay, so we're going to use 5 sales from those neighborhoods, from your neighborhood. We're going to compare them to homes, similar homes. If you have a Cape Cod style home or a colonial style home, you're going to be compared to sales that have occurred over the last 3 to 4 years that have occurred in your neighborhood of Cape Cod style or colonial style homes. Okay? If you have a 2-family home, we're going to evaluate a 2-family home. When I gave this presentation last week, there was an individual in the audience who said that she lives in an all residential single-family neighborhood, and she has the only 2-family home in the neighborhood. Okay, and she was concerned because she said, "Are you going to compare me to those single-family homes?" And I said, "No, we're not. We're not going to compare you to those 2-family homes. We're going to compare you to 2-family homes. If there's no sales of 2-family homes in your neighborhood," and she said there wasn't, but her definition of neighborhood and our definition of neighborhood may be different. Then we will go to neighboring neighborhoods for those sales. Okay.
What is your definition of?
I'm sorry. What is
your definition?
The definition of neighborhood is socioeconomic likenesses. There could be geographic boundaries. If you have a railroad track, that could be one end of your neighborhood. It's more, a neighborhood is more than 2 or 3 blocks. Okay, it encompasses probably 20, 30 blocks. Okay, the neighborhood map is on the assessor's website. You'll be able to look at this, see what neighborhood you're in. And you should know what neighborhood you're in. And it's a 3-digit number. It's either 104, 105, 127. Get to know what your neighborhood number is. If you have trouble with that, you can call the assessor or you can call me. And the number is going to be on the last slide. You can get a hold of me. Great question. What drives the market value? The same thing drives market value now that drove it 5,000 years ago. Location, location, location. Location is still the most important influence on market value. Okay, some locations are more desirable for others, not in Cheektowaga, but if you have lakefront property, that's more desirable. Okay, some people may want to live near the city of Buffalo for decades, right? For decades, nobody wanted to live in the city. And all of a sudden, over the last 7, 8 years, everybody wants to move back in the city. Not only the younger people who are a main driving force, but the older people want to live in the city as well. Okay? Others may want to live in the country. They may want acreage. Okay? They want to get away from their neighbors. Okay? Economic influences. A prime example, which quite frankly, I thought you would think would have an influence, is being in COVID, where we are right now in COVID. You would think COVID would have some negative influence on property values. And it's maybe just the opposite. For whatever reason, it's driving the values up. Okay, but economic recessions, okay, have a big impact on market value. Okay, the style of your home. Okay, ranches are very popular. Okay, they're the most popular home in Western New York. Okay, when I say popular, most in demand, we have an elderly population. They want to downsize from their 2-story colonial, and they want to get into a 1-story floor plan. Okay, so ranches universally across Western New York are generally more popular, and they sell quicker, and they sell at a higher higher price per square foot typically. Okay, number of bathrooms is another factor that counts. Okay, 2 bathroom versus 1 bed. What we don't take into consideration, we don't take into consideration number of bedrooms. Okay, 2-bedroom home versus a 3-bedroom home. We don't do that because a lot of people over the years have taken their 3rd bedroom, on the 1st floor. They had a 1st floor bedroom, and they convert that into a den, an office. Okay, and so they won't count it as a bedroom. So we are concentrating more on the size of your house, what we call the SFLA, square footage living area. You will see that on the assessor's website. That's the gross square footage of your home. When I say gross square footage, it's the exterior dimensions of your home that are finished. If you have an attached garage, we don't count that in your SFL. Okay? If you have a finished basement in a ranch style home, or Cape Cod style home, in a colonial style home, we don't count that square footage. It gets added as an additional feature, that finished basement area, but it's worth less. It's worth less per square foot than the above grade area. That below grade area does get counted for in raised ranches and split lots. Okay, different style homes. The prime, in my opinion, the prime reason why we're seeing over the last 7 years this increase in property values are interest rates. Interest rates, if you had been around long enough, in the late 70s, early 80s, interest rates on mortgages were 16, 18%. The younger generation has a hard time believing that anything could sell at 16 or 18% interest rates on a mortgage. Now you're at 3.25%, 3.5%. What does that do? Economics 101. Okay, supply and demand. You now have all these renters who are out there. And the fact that they're paying $1,500, $2,000 a month in rent is another story for another discussion. But they're paying, some of them, $1,500, $2,000 a month to rent. Okay, and now you can get interest at 3.5%. That's driving property values up because there are a lot of people in that situation. Okay, so you have a supply that there isn't a big supply out there. If you follow the paper, you should be reading the paper, any real estate article that is in the paper on local, you should read from now till May, next May. Okay, there's not a large supply of homes on the market. Okay, but the demand is very strong. And why is it strong? Because you got these interest rates that are low and these people who are looking to do it. That's how you get 20 people putting in offers on one house, 30 people. Ask going over $50,000 over asking price. It's happening. It's happening out there. Interest rates are a huge factor. And nobody can explain. I haven't heard anybody explain why they're still low. You know, the Federal Reserve is, you know, they're playing some games, I think, quite frankly. And they're trying to keep the economy afloat. And to do that, they have to keep the interest rates low. When those rates start going up, you're going to see the opposite. Okay, you're going to see maybe a decline in value. Generally speaking, Western New York, over the past 50 years, has seen a very gradual appreciation in your property values. It would usually go up, 3%, 2-3% a year. So when we had the Great Recession, I mean, it was great, not in a good sense, the Great Recession of 2008. Okay, the rest of the country, the housing market crashed. Okay, Florida, California, Arizona, Vegas, all these hot spots that everybody wanted to move in, their property values crashed. My brother had a starter home in California for $500,000. Okay, the crash hit. He couldn't sell it for $300,000. Couldn't sell it for $300,000. Okay, so but we will. So what's going to happen is the next time. Now we've seen these spikes in values, like I just talked about. So the next time there's a crash in the market, in the property value, a real estate crash, we're going to feel that more here. We're not going to feel it maybe as much as the rest of the country because we're still behind the rest of the country. But we're going to feel that impact when the housing market crashes the next time. Okay. Again, so here's what one of the main questions you have to ask yourself is the market value estimate that you're going to get in March, is it a reasonable representation of what you can sell your home? That's it in a nutshell. You're going to get the notice. It's going to say, okay, they say my property's worth $125,000. Yeah, I just had it refinanced 2 years ago for $118,000. It's probably close enough. You don't have to do anything. If you get your notice and it says $125,000 and you just refinanced your house 2-3 years ago for $100,000, then you want to go through the informal review process and you want to make sure that you work a little bit to get your assessment reduced at the informal review process. Okay, these are the dates. Okay, we're going to have another public meeting or meetings. I'm not, with COVID, everything's kind of loosey-goosey a little bit here. But we're going to have public meeting or meetings in February of next year. The impact notices, the disclosure notices will go out to the taxpayers in March of 2021. You got those this year. You got them in February or early March this year. Okay? Those impact notices will have nothing to do with what your value is next year. I would keep them for reference, I guess. But we're revaluing, we started from scratch. We started from scratch with the valuation. We're using now sales that have occurred since January of 2020 that were not included in your models last year or earlier this year. So we're using a whole other year of sales and updating the values. So you're gonna get those notices. Oh, what did I do there? Why did they do this? Going the wrong direction. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So you're going to get your notice, the informal hearings. You're going to have a number to call in. They're not going to be, in all likelihood, they're not going to be person to person. They're going to be over the phone. Okay. Those take place in March and April. You're going to get the notification of those results no later than May 1st. Why May 1st? Why no later than May 1st? The tentative roll by the assessor's office has to be filed by May 1st. So it won't be later than May 1st. So let's say you come to the informal review, informal process. We have your property at $125,000. You think it's worth $100,000. You come in, you meet with us, and we encourage everybody who has any little bit of a doubt to come into the informal process. We want to talk to you. We want to get your input. You've been inside your homes, obviously. We have not been on the inside of your homes. Okay? If you want us to come into your homes, we'll be more than happy to do that. You can call the number that's going to be at the end of the slide presentation, and we'll be happy to come into your homes. Now, why would you want us on the inside of your home? You may have outdated your bathrooms and kitchens maybe from 1960. Okay, so you want to make us aware of it. Okay, so you won't want us to come into your home if you had a recent $50,000 kitchen. Okay, I'm being honest with you. If it was me, I wouldn't want the town coming into my home if I had a $50,000 kitchen. We still live in the United States of America. The government cannot come into your home unless we have your permission. Okay? If you want us to come into your home, we'll be more than happy to schedule a time and come out and look at your property. You may want to show us your basement. Okay, it's flooded, it rained and it's got. And I'm not talking about the spring. Everybody gets a little dampness in the spring. You know, if you get 6 inches of water in your basement, you want us to see it. Okay, you should take pictures. If you come to the informal process, we're going to get into this more in February. But it's important. I want to go over it because it's important. What you should bring to the informal review, because we haven't been in the inside, bring pictures. Okay? Very good. If you have an appraisal done recently, bring the appraisal. Okay? We're here, and you may not believe this, but it's true. We're here to help you as much as we can. Because like I said earlier, we're not going to get 28,000 assessments, correct? Okay? Grievance day. So now you come in and we say now, yeah, you're right. You do deserve a reduction, but we don't think it's worth 100. We're going to lower you to 115. So now you're going to get the notice. You're going to get the notice around May 1st that's going to say it's lowered from 125 to 115. And you're going to say, Joe he did what he said he was going to do. He looked at the property again, he lowered it, but it's still too high. Still too high. And then you got to go to the grievance process, the formal grievance process. The informal process is just a one-on-one meeting with yourself and myself, somebody from my firm. The grievance process is more formal. It's a 4-page state form that you have to fill out. And you got to raise your hand. Repeat after me. I swear it's up to nothing but the truth. So you got it's recorded. But you want to do the same thing. We're using 5 sales, as I alluded to earlier, to evaluate your property. All the sales that we're using are going to be on the website. Okay, you can go to the website now. You'll be able to find it. You should get familiar with the town assessor's website. You want to make sure that information on the town assessor's website is accurate, because it'll say how many square feet you have, how many SFLA you have, square foot living area. It'll say how many bathrooms you have. You want to make sure that information is accurate, because if it's not accurate, it's going to give a false number, a bad number. If the number is not accurate, you can call again, call the number at the end of this slide presentation, and I'll pick it up, or somebody from my office will pick it up, and we will verify it. Okay, so then you go to grievance day, and then you'll be notified by July 1st what the result of that, going before the board of assessment review, what the result is. The board of assessment review is made with a panel of 5 peers of yours. That's 5 members of your town comprise that board. They're appointed by the town board. My firm at that point is out of the picture. We're kind of out of the picture after the informal review process. So at that point. But if you have a question between the informal review process and grievance day and anything after that, feel free to call us. Okay, we're here to help you. We're here to help you. Okay? The burden of proof is on you, though. Okay, the assessment that you're going to get in March is assumed to be correct by the law. So you have to prove that that assessment is incorrect. And how do you do it? Most likely an appraisal, getting sales from the assessor's website. The books are going to be in the library. Although, again, with COVID, you just don't know, how it's going to work out. But the burden of proof is on you. But you will have all the sales available at your fingertips. Okay? You must present convincing evidence that the assessor's estimate is incorrect. Okay? The assessors, my firm, we have no interest in overvaluing or undervaluing your home. And why? Because the assessor could raise everybody's assessment in the town 50%. Also more. 75%. Everybody's assessment goes up 75%. Oh, people are in an uproar. Well, guess what happens in that instance? Your taxes will be the same to the penny that they were before when they were 75% low. It gets back to the formulas I showed you. Why? Because she treated everybody equally. Everybody got treated the same. Everybody's assessment went up 75%. Now, if she took up some of 75% and some only of 30%, then you got a problem. Okay, but if you raise everybody equally, there's no problem. Okay, so the assessor has no skin in this game. No skin in it, or my firm has no skin in it. We're just trying to create a fair and equitable role for distribution of the taxes. Myths and facts. Tax levies grow at a faster rate in properties that conduct reassessments. Well, no, okay, that's not true because the tax levy is the same no matter if you do a reassessment or you don't do a reassessment. The size of the pie isn't changing. The tax levy is controlled by the jurisdiction boards, the town board, the school board, and the county legislature. Okay. The key to the tax rate is what is the levy? Keep going back to that levy. Okay, that's a key thing that you got to take home with you. Okay. If it increased or decreased, stayed the same, that's going to determine what your taxes are going to be. Pay attention to the levy. In fact, in the year of a revale, tax rate usually decreases, giving the illusion, okay, that the town has reduced taxes. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I kind of glanced over it. Okay, tax rates, your tax rate is coming down next year. I will guarantee you that. Okay, that's another guarantee, making guarantees all over. Okay, your tax rate is going down, but that doesn't mean your taxes are going down. There was an elected official, and I'm not going to name the town, about maybe 12, 14 years ago, who went to their constituents. They were going through a reassessment project. The individual went to their constituents, his or her constituents, and told people, your tax rate is going down, so your taxes are going down. And I almost had a heart attack reading that in the paper. I said, oh my God, she there was a woman, I gave up. She just made a huge blunder there. That does not mean, just because the tax rate is going down, does not mean that your taxes are going down. And guess what? She lost her election. She lost because people got their tax bills and they realized, oh, my taxes didn't go. The tax rate went down, but my taxes went up. Okay? And it just an increase assessments are causing the increase in tax bills, and that's not true. Okay, the myth, assessors raise values in response to district pressure for revenue. The town needs more money. In the old days, that's true. Prior to 2011, or prior to 2012, that could happen. There might have been what a so-called money grant by the taxing jurisdictions. But when the tax cap law got passed in 2011, and the first year it went into effect was 2012, that got rid of that. Because the pie, like I said, is still staying the same size. You're not seeing those 5, 6, 7, 8% increases in tax levies for the most part. Now, some towns this year may have a little higher than normal because of COVID. Okay, some towns may have that, but normal, whatever that means now, in normal times, that's not going to happen. Okay? The town fathers and mothers, this is no money grant. They're basically getting 2% of what their tax levy was last year. That's it. Values change in response to economic changes. Tax rates should drop proportionally to the assessments. That's kind of what I've been harping on. The myth is the assessor sets the property taxes. Hopefully you understood me tonight that that's not the case. Property tax levies, okay, and the rates are set by the school boards, the town boards, the village boards. They're not by the assessors. The assessors have no skin in the game. The assessors are only responsible for trying to put a fair market value on each property. You only want to pay your fair share of the tax burden. So here's an important factor, the taxable status date. Taxable status date is March 1st, not only next year, but it's every year throughout New York State and most municipalities. And why is that date important? Because if you're thinking of, if you got an old garage and you think, yeah, I have a one-car garage, I want to put up a two-car garage. Okay, you want to make sure that that garage gets torn down prior to March 1st. Because if that garage is, even if it's dilapidated, it is value. Okay, it's what's on the property March 1st every year. If you tear down that garage on March 2nd, you're out of luck. It's March 1st, that garage is staying on the tax rolls for valuation purposes. Okay. You want to tear down that garage on March 2nd. Okay. You want to go for your permit to demolish it on March 2nd. They can take it down. Commercial developers are famous for taking down a lot of property in February. And why do they do that? They do that because they want that property to be vacant, valued as vacant, when March 1st rolls. Okay. These are just taxpayers that your exemptions are all due on March 1st, whether it be senior, enhanced start, your veterans exemptions. Any exemption that you have has to be in the assessor's office by March 1st. And again, the tentative roll is filed on May 1st. Grievance day next year is May 26th, the fourth Wednesday in May. And again, the final roll is on July 1st. That's the number you can call from tonight forward. I won't answer the call tonight. Call me tomorrow. Okay, 712-5758. If you have any questions on what we presented tonight, if you have any questions in December, if you have any questions in February, call that number. Be happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm gonna anticipate some questions that I didn't address now. How do we value your property if you haven't been in on the inside of your home? Okay, how do we do it? So we base it primarily on the exterior condition of your property, your home. Okay, so when we do our drive-by, inspections, okay, we know things. Some of them will be physical characteristics. If you're next to an industrial plant, okay, that's an influence on your property value. I always give this example. I did the town of Lancaster 11 years ago, town of Lancaster, and I'm doing my final field reviews, and I'm in the field, and I'm going through the properties, and I'm looking at some nice homes, and I'm going, these valuation documents are giving me too low of a figure. These homes are definitely worth more than what is showing here on the sheet. And I'm sitting there in my car for about 5 minutes, looking at it, trying to figure out what's going on. All of a sudden, train was like a block away. That impacts value. Okay, so what we do is we do it on exterior condition of home. If your house, people say, well, we're being penalized because we keep our exterior, we keep our house up nice, so we are paying more in tax. And yes, I'm not going to lie to you, that is true. But remember what I said in the beginning, your home is probably your largest asset. Okay, you want to maintain that asset, that equity in your home for a variety of reasons. Maybe you want to leave it for your kids, you want to leave it for your retirement. There's a lot of reasons you want your home to maintain or increase in value. If my assessment goes up $10,000 and I gotta pay an extra $100 a year in tax, I'll do that for the next 30 years. I will do that, no questions asked. Okay, is it a perfect system? No, it's not a perfect system. One of the tools, big tools that we use is we use the multiple listing service, MLS, for the sales that go through a realtor. Okay, when people list a home for sale, what do they typically do? They talk up their property, right? They're trying to sell it. They're not going to tell you about the cracked wall in the basement, okay? They're going to tell you, they're talking about that new flooring countertop in the kitchen, or the $20,000 bathroom that they just remodeled, okay? Well, that's a tool that we use. It's being fair and telling you about it, okay? We mark that down. So that condition of that home probably gets rated a little higher maybe than some of the other homes in the neighborhood. Now, what about the ones that we don't know that they put the $20,000 remodel, the $50,000 kitchen? Well, what's going to happen in those instances is I would anticipate that if you live next door to one of their homes, sooner or later, you're going to make an anonymous phone call into the assessor's office. And you're going to say, hey, 123 French Road, they just put $80,000 into their house. They don't have no building permits. And will the assessor's office take your word for that? No. They're going to do some of their own investigation. Okay. But eventually, hopefully, it'll catch up. You don't want to, we're just trying to be fair. We just finished the city of Buffalo reassessment project earlier this year. 95,000 parcels. I mean, 3 times the size of Cheektowaga. And property values in the city of Buffalo. If you think property values are going up in Cheektowaga, property values in every sector of the city of Buffalo going up dramatically. And I had people yelling and screaming at me, when they got their notices, calling me up. And my taxes, and again, they're making the argument, my taxes are going up 9 times. I said, well, look at your assessment, sir. I said, could you say his house was assessed for $76,000 before the reassessment? I said, what's your assessment now? And he goes, $450,000. Okay, I said, could you sell your house for $450,000? Well, yeah, I could probably get at least that. Okay, so what was going on there? The rest of the city was subsidizing that guy when he was assessed at $76,000. It's not fair. It just isn't fair. And that's what we're trying to address with this project, is to just make it more fair, more equitable. Okay, we're going to have people who are going to be very concerned about the taxes, but that's not the assessor's responsibility. It's not our firm's responsibility. Look at your figure, your number, when you get it in March, and we're going to go over that in February, more in depth, a lot more in depth than I did tonight, and what you got to do. When you get there, ask yourself, could I sell my home, or what's this? So pay attention to what's selling in your neighborhood. Pay attention to what's selling in your neighborhood. So that concludes my public presentation, right about an hour. So I will open it up for questions. Be glad to answer any questions in public. If you are shy or you don't want to get up and say it, you're not sure, I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards and I'll answer your question. We're trying to be as transparent as we can with this process. All the information is on the assessor's website. You're going to get the sales. You're going to be able to see what your neighbors are assessing. Okay, so you're going to be able to get all that. So to make sure that you're assessed accurately. But if I told you to remember what the tax limit is about, here's another thing that you should also remember. No 2 houses are alike. No matter how much you think maybe your next door neighbor's house is identical to yours, there's always something different. I've never been doing this for 39 years. I've never seen 2 houses identical. Somebody's going to have a patio in the back. Somebody's going to have, they'll have a finished basement. Maybe the outside dimensions will be exactly the same. Okay, but there's going to be little things. The site improvement, a 1-car garage versus a 2-car garage. There's going to be little things that are going to be change the value. So no 2 homes are alike. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Questions, anyone? Yes. Please speak up.
When we received the paper in February, does that tell us like the neighborhood and the parent conflict for the actual
No, yeah, okay, the question was, I believe, when you get the notice in March, you're gonna get the notice in March. When you get that notice in March, will it show the neighbor's assessment?
And like, you said, like, it will list what neighborhood we're in, like how.
No, it will not show the neighbor. No, the question was, will your neighborhood number be on the disclosure notice? And no, the answer is no. You do have to go online, call the assessor. You have roughly 6 months to do it, 5 months to do it. So, and if you have questions, call me up.
And then my other question is, when you guys are doing your assessment and you said you go out the next year, do you walk around your property?
No. Another thing that we cannot do, because we live in the United States of America, is we can't trespass on your property. We do everything from the public right of way. Okay, everything from but remember, we have MLS and we have Big Brother in the sky. We have pictometry, we can zoom in, for better or for worse. It's a good tool for us. We can see what's going on. We can see who has the in-ground pools. 20 years ago, there were a ton of people who had in-ground pools. Who never got permits. They were never on the assessor's record. Over the last 20 years, every municipality has looked from the sky to see who has all these in-ground pools. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you. Very important. You explained the situation. My current assessment is town is raised. And the raise the tax levy 2%. However,
You led right into my next question. Okay, beautiful. And I should have a slide on this, but I don't. And here's another key number that you got to pay attention to at the end of the project, when you get your notice, this will come, so at the beginning of March. Let's say your assessment goes up 20%. What's that? Let's say 20%. That's
you're going to go from 83 hours.
it's 17, yeah. Well, that's everybody, but that's just the equalization rate. That's just the equalization rate. Okay. If pay attention to how much percentage your assessment goes up. So if you're at 50,000, 100,000, $100,000 now, and your assessment goes up to 150. Okay, so that's a 50% increase in your assessment. Okay. Now we got to look at the total taxable value of the town. You have your property going up 50%. That's an exaggeration. 50%. It's a total taxable value. What's that? Well, okay, well, that's good. That's a good thing. You should be happy about that. You should be happy. I wish my assessment was going up 50%. Okay? Because you may have been underassessed before, too. That's another argument people will make. They'll make the argument come next March and April. They'll make the argument that my assessment went up 60%. I can't help you. Because I can help you with the new assessment. I can help you with what your assessment's going to be. The old assessment is irrelevant because you may have been underassessed before. People may have been subsidizing you before. So you got to concentrate on what your assessment is when you get it next March. So if your assessment goes up, I'm going to go back there. If your example, wait, let me just get through this because I don't want to lose my train of thought here. I'm not that smart. If your assessment goes up 30%, okay, and the rest of the town is going up 35%, so the total taxable value of the town, you're going to have those numbers. The total taxable value of the town goes up 35%, and your assessment goes up 30%, your assessment in all likelihood will be coming down. Your assessment, let's say an example that I gave earlier, your assessment's going to be going up, but the taxable value of the town, remember, I showed that to you on the slide, you have it there.
With the assessment going up, the taxable assessment of the town is going up.
Yeah, that's right. So the tax rate's going to be coming down. The tax rate's coming down. The tax rate's going to be coming down. That's the key factor you got to remember. You're not, the same tax rate you're applying to your assessment today, it can't apply to next year because the tax rate's going to be going down.
When will we know where taxes actually are? Like, when will this?
You won't know that exactly until you get your tax. Okay, then we'll get into that more in February, but I'll answer the question now. You're going to get your notice. These are great questions, and I love talking about these. The question is, when will we know what the real taxes are going to be doing? When you get your notice in February, or I'm sorry, in March, it's going to say on there, if you remember what it said this year, it said it's going to show your tax or your assessment on the top, and on the bottom is your tax impact, what you're, from last year to this year. And it says in there, it's a hypothetical example. Hypothetical example. Okay, why does it have to be a hypothetical example? Because the first tax bill that new assessment is going to be applied to will be the school tax bill in September, October next year. Okay, that's the first tax bill that your new assessment is going to be applied to. Do you know what the tax levy is going to be at the school district next year? Nobody knows what the tax levy is going to be. Okay. So with the town tax, your first town tax bill will be January of 2022. Okay, so 15 months from now. We can't put on that disclosure notice in March what the tax rate is going to be 9 months from now. Nobody knows. So what we do is we use the prior year's levy and kind of do some determination. So what they're going to be voting on this November are the figures that we're going to be applying it to. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, so you said that we will have the town's information, like how much the entire town is going up.
Yeah.
That would be on our.
No, that's another thing. That'll be on the website.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure.
There is so much information that's a state form. It's a state form. That disclosure notice is a state form. The town assessor's office has about, I'm going to say 15 words that they get to, not even that, maybe 10 words that they get to input on that thing. So there's very little that the town has input on. But the total taxable value of the town will be on the website. And it should be prominently displayed. That's a big number. That's a big information number that you should all have and you should all be aware of. Not only what the new taxable figure is, but what the percentage was. It should show last year's, I'm sorry, I guess it would be last year's total taxable value and this year's total taxable value and what the increase. So it's got to have two, because the one number alone won't tell you. You got to have both years. You got to see what that increase was. Okay, you have a question?
I had a question. So you brought up about the whole train track thing and how you think that.
Yeah.
So what about,
That's a subjective adjustment, yeah.
so in that subjective adjustment, for people who live in the airport, traffic,
That's it, yeah.
but on top of, not just the airport,
Yeah.
on top of that, someone who an noise reduction program.
Yep, we're aware of that.
The house that didn't get included in that being adjusted by those that did.
We have a list. That's neighborhood, if anybody lives in that neighborhood, it's neighborhood 109. You don't have to look it up. Okay, it's neighborhood 109. Okay, so you're done. Okay, so you can thank me later. Okay, that's neighborhood 109. Okay, neighborhood 109 got into that program and that had the sound reduction windows and we have a list of the homes and they have all those. Not everybody got it, as you alluded to. Not everybody got it. There's a factor that goes into that.
That was a concern, that those that did get included, there was $10,000 upgrade that I doesn't have.
Right.
If you're considering everybody around you should have it.
So what you want to make sure on March, you want to take a look at everybody's assessment, kind of in your neighborhood, in your 109 neighborhood. And if you know those who got it, who didn't get it, you want to bring that to the attention when you do your form. That's a great point. And these are great questions. These are great questions. Yes, ma'am. How are we handling that?
Having so many people having to move a bit for buying a home. I'm in
Yeah. I mean, for now, that's the market, unfortunately. As I said, you're creating the market. That's the market. Is it going to be that market 2-3 years from now? Probably not.
So there's no
No. The sale. What realtors are doing? Are there any realtors here? They're probably watching. what a lot of realtors are doing is they're lowballing the homes, okay, because they want 20 people to bid on. Okay, they'll go in there in a house that may be worth 180. Okay, they got to listen for. There's a house not anywhere across the street from me. Okay, bad example. The house that I'm thinking of is down the street from me. They listed that property. It's worth probably 180. They listed it for $160,000. And in the old days, in the normal times, are they crazy? They're giving it away. No. They want 20, 30 people showing up. They want a bidding war. They do. Realtors got smart, for lack of a better word. Realtors got smart, and they realized that they could drive their prices up and drive their commissions up. By doing it. I would like to say that it's not going to happen a year or two from now, but this has been going on for a long time, and I really can't figure out why the housing market is still. I'm sorry. Okay. Yep. Yeah. People are bidding. You got people coming in from, people are, believe it or not, people are moving back into the area. Not a lot, more are leaving than are coming back. That's true. You got people coming in from California. An example I know of, somebody paid probably $150,000 over what they should. He's coming from San Francisco. He had an $800,000 home in San Francisco. He moves back to Western New York. You can get a lot of house for $800,000. Okay, he overpaid me. He wasn't familiar with the market, obviously. His realtor wasn't doing many favors, but the realtor gets a commission. But that's the market. That's the market as we stand now. The next time the town does a reassessment project, if they elect a new one, that may not be the market. Be more than normal.
Can you get your house reassessed at any time, or does it have to be a part of the project?
Do what?
Like,
can we do it randomly?
So like 5 years from now, I know my house is taking crap, and I'm like, all right, now I want my house reassessed now. I don't want to wait for you guys to do
Another great question. Okay, the question is, if you're, 5 years from now, the town has gone forward with a reassessment update. Can you, and your property value tanks for whatever reason? Okay, goes down in value. I should say it goes down in value. Can you do anything about it? Yes, absolutely. This is where the deck is stacked in your favor, stacked in the resident's favor. Okay, you can challenge your assessment every year if you think your assessment is incorrect. Every year you can do that. Okay, you go to the Board of Assessment Review every year. It's not next year. This is in the foreseeable future, 10, 20 years. Do it. What can and the vice versa though? Can the town raise your assessment based on the sale price? So let's say a house sold for $200,000 and it's only assessed for $125,000. Can the town raise that assessment? And the answer is no. The town cannot raise assessments. You can come in and challenge your assessment to lower, but the town can't raise the assessment. That's known as the welcome stranger. You can't do that. Okay, so that is I'm going to call it what it is. It's a big advantage to the property. Not fair to the assessor, quite frankly, especially in these times we find ourselves in, when you got property values going through the roof. And they can't do anything about it unless they do a reassessment. And that's why municipalities in a lot of ways are doing reassessment projects, because there's a lot of inequities in the road. If those homes that are paying $200 and are only assessed at $125, that's not fair to anyone. Yes.
One more quick question. Why did you guys decide to do it again? Just that last year?
Why did the town board, not me, why did the town board elect to go to follow up this year from last year? There was a court action. Somebody filed, residents filed a lawsuit, class action lawsuit, and the court ruled that it had to be implemented this year, or next year, for 2020.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll stay up here in front if anybody else has any questions. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for the great questions you asked. And hopefully I'll see you back here in February when we do our update before you get your notice. That's a very important class too. Okay, thank you, everyone. Drive safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.